So Swami Karunananda, first of all, thank you for taking the time to do this. I always love spending time with you. I wanted to start to see if we can get some of your history and ask if you can share anything you know about your birth story, like where you were born and anything you know about your birth.
My birth? Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Where so many people on the spiritual path seem to originate from. My birth story, what comes to mind, if that's the question you're asking, my parents told me that I started speaking when I was 6 months old. And when I look at 6-month-old babies now, I don't know how that's possible. And they also tell me that when I was 3 years old, I picked up a newspaper and started reading it out loud, never having been taught how to read. And they asked me, "How are you doing this?" And I just said, "I don't know. I just know." I think they thought I was an alien being who had come in the form of their daughter. But I think from a yogic perspective, those samskaras were probably very close to the surface. And God knew I was going to have a lot to say this lifetime. So he or she got started early.
Do you have any kind of like intuition into why you were able to do that? I mean, does it just feel like it was something from a previous life or something with your skill set that you were able to pick up language very quickly?
It just was. I wasn't analyzing much back then.
What do you mean, like now, knowing
Now,
yourself? Yeah.
What I said, the samskaras, those samskaras were close to the surface and they just expressed themselves.
How about an early memory that you have?
You know, before coming here, I just spent a few minutes thinking, considering that you might ask me a question like that, because I never think about that time of my life. And what came to mind was, if you would have asked me what was the beginning of my spiritual journey, I think I would point to a walk I took when I was in 6th grade, so I was about 10 years old. It was on my block in Brooklyn. That's what we call the streets in Brooklyn, our blocks. And I asked myself the question, what do you want to do with your life? And the answer that immediately came was, I want to help people. So the next question that came was, well, what's the best way to do that? And immediately the answer came, I want to help relieve their suffering any way I can. And then the final question was, well, what do you think the best way to do that was? And the only thing I knew was what I had seen in my short life of people who remove other people's suffering, doctors. So then and there, that moment, I decided that is what I was going to do. And I think I was about 10 years old then, and I began writing. I said, well, how am I going to begin studying? I have to begin preparing now. I am somewhat of a planner. So I began writing to all the medical and disease associations I could think of to send me all their literature, because it would always include descriptions of the problems and the treatment protocols that were available. And that's how I began my self-education. And I never wavered. In college, I was in a pre-medical program. I majored in chemistry in a pre-med program. And I followed that for 3.5 years. At the time, I was in New York City. At the time, Gurudev arrived in New York City. I knew nothing about yoga. I had never heard of him. but my interests began to shift. And it is only in more recent years that it has occurred to me that it was the proximity of his presence that either contributed to or directly caused the shift in me. The subtle influence, because I didn't live far from him. I was attending Barnard College, Columbia University, and he was right in the area there. And so my interest shifted from science itself to the philosophy of science.
Okay, I want to go back though, because I think the original seed that was planted is very interesting, right? So, okay, this walk that you were taking, were you by
Yes.
yourself?
Yes.
You're by yourself. Do you remember like what you were doing, where you were going?
I had been playing with my friend, and I was going home for dinner.
And this question just occurred to you. What do you
Yes.
want to do with your life?
Yes.
Isn't it amazing how powerful that question is?
Yeah.
And I think it's possible to not even really ask it. Like, to me, it's like, that's amazing that you were clear at that age. And that question, like, what even a gift that
Yeah.
question came to you. But it's so simple, but maybe the most important one, right? Like, just, what do I want to do with my time? We have this
Yeah.
time here. What do I want to do with it? So I think that's beautiful that you received that question at that age. And do you think there was like a shift that occurred afterwards? Like, did any part of you maybe like relax in knowing like, okay, I have a plan now, whereas before that wasn't there?
I'll tell you, there was another line of inquiry that I had at that time that did cause a shift. I was very good both in, I guess you could call it academic studies at that age, and also in athletics. It might be hard to believe looking at me now, but I was really good in athletics. And I analyzed, and I said, again, part of what I want to do with my life, it seemed clear to me that I couldn't do both and do them well, that I had to choose. And I chose academics because I thought that would be more useful for people. I could be of more use that way. And I'm thinking now, as I'm relating this to you, that was probably the primary inquiry, and from there, I probably pivoted into, okay, so what do you want to do with your life? So I made a shift in my focus. I made a clear decision. This was going to be my track.
So athletics,
Yeah.
right? Like, what did you play? What did you enjoy playing?
I was good at running. I was good at skating. The things kids did, biking, different ball games.
And you felt like you could just pick them up quickly and you can become fairly
I just
proficient?
had natural skills, hand-to-eye coordination, speed, balance, things like that. I remember once when I was in junior high, we were playing, I think it was volleyball, and I did an assist. The volley came our way. I haven't thought of this in decades. And I somehow swiveled and jumped, and I don't know what I did. I did an assist that must have been quite remarkable, because the gym teachers came over afterwards and they placed me on some special honor guard in the school that was, you know, a real privilege to be on. I have no recollection of all that. And I remember, too, I once went to an athletic club in the same age range, and I had never played ping pong before. But I saw people playing, and I thought, okay, me too, I'll try it. Somehow I had an unreturnable serve. It would go, and then it would like turn backwards, hang in the air, you know, one of those crazy sort of things. And I dominated the table for a couple of hours until I got tired, and I left. So I've never thought of these things, but you're plumbing the old
Yeah.
memories.
Yeah. And, you know, relieving suffering, like even at that
Yes.
age.
Yes.
You know, I kind of have this hypothesis a little bit that that if every one of us stops to ask that question, like what do I really want, that's the similarity between what we all really want. Like we all really want to serve. That like we're
Yes.
kind of like made for that. And each of us gets to choose our unique way to serve. Like then the process, okay, like first it's like, I want to help, you know, and then I get to choose how I want to help. And there's an endless variety of different ways
Yeah.
to serve.
Yes. I totally agree with what you're saying. I think it's a primary need of every human being to feel like they're making a valuable contribution during their time here on earth. Just like it's a primary need for a baby to be touched or it won't thrive. The baby will die if it isn't touched.
Yeah.
As we mature, the need to serve is stronger and more important than we realize.
Do you ever consider that because like in a way, because of technology, that the world has gotten much larger, right? Like we're connected to what's going on places very far from where we live. And we're connected to a lot of things that people are doing on social media, whatever it is. And that as a result, maybe a common response to that is to feel small. Like I even think about this living in a city, when you're in a city and there's all these people around you, right? Like you kind of can forget your value, you know, and then that feeling, then it's like kind of the opposite of that, like, oh, like I have something to offer, I can serve other people, I can make a difference. The other side of that spectrum is like, what can I do? Like the world's so big, the problems are so big. Like I feel like a lot of people fall into that, right?
I think it's unfortunate and in a way wrong thinking. On the one hand, each one of us is very tiny, and our time on this planet for any lifespan is just a blink of an eye. At the same time, though, the power of the divine is pulsating within us, that infinite potential to do good in this world. I sometimes tell a couple of stories to inspire people in that way. One is a story from the Ramayana, when Rama is building a bridge to rescue Sita. And all the great bears and monkeys have come to assist him. And they're carrying huge trees and boulders. In the midst of all this, there's this little chipmunk running around, scurrying around, grabbing a stick, a leaf, and adding his little contribution to the pile. And after a while, the great monkeys and the great bears look at this little critter and go, "What do you think you're doing? You're so tiny. You can't do much." And the little chipmunk looked up and said, "I'm helping Rama build his bridge." And they laughed and laughed. And then Lord Rama came, picked up the little chipmunk, stroked him. And they say that's why the chipmunk has stripes today. It's the blessing of Rama's touch. And when I've thought about that later, yes, the great monkeys and bears were grabbing these huge things and stacking them. All the little leaves and twigs and whatnot was probably the mortar that held it all together.
Right, but even if it was like the smallest thing that hardly had any effect, or even just like the polishing of the bridge or something like that, right? Like,
Okay.
I wonder if maybe the cause of some suffering, of feeling meaningless in a way, is a focus on result instead of process, right? So if I'm focused on process, it's more about what is the experience going to be for me? Is it going to be healthy, right? Like what you were talking about in terms of how we're wired is to serve, right? Like just like needing food and water, we need to serve, we need a purpose. Like so, to me, there's a shift that happens there to the experience itself that I'm having while I'm serving, not like the outcome of, you know, building the whole bridge.
I go a step further. It's not about the result. It's not about the process, because it's not about us. You just dissolve into the moment as an instrument of what is occurring. I don't think about the process when I do something. I don't think about the result. I just think, I don't even think, I focus and then let something flow through. That's one thing I learned when I was really focused on Hatha Yoga. Back in the day, I probably taught thousands of Hatha Yoga classes at all sorts of venues. And when I first started, like everyone else, I was very nervous. You know, am I going to do a good job? Are they going to like my class? You know, those sorts of thoughts. And then it didn't take too long, and I came to realize it wasn't about me at all. It had nothing to do with me. Somehow the universe provided me with this preparation, this knowledge, this skill, and it's just being shared with others. That's its purpose. I'm just a vehicle, an instrument for it. To this day, for decades now, whenever I go to teach, I stand before my altar and I have one prayer. Please make what I have to say be useful. Make it be useful. That's it.
Well, maybe your experience is different than mine, but my experience is that there's movement between levels. So sometimes I'm at that level of pure focus where there is no me.
Okay.
And if I'm putting a label on it, maybe I'd say that's the most wonderful, or I love that. That's in a way the goal, to be in that place. But for me, at least, that's not sustainable. I can't be there all the time where there's no me. And I've come to believe that like all the levels are okay. Like they're a part of the process, right? And I want to clean up all the different levels, right? So sometimes there is taking care of the plan, or even one level that I actually I've gotten great benefit from is seeing it as my responsibility to take care of Avi. Like when I look at it like that. And that if each of us saw it as our responsibilities to take care of ourselves, and why am I cleaning up this instrument? In order to serve. And then I'm clear on that, right? But it's so easy to get distracted on other things. And if the whole world was operating that we all saw, and why? Because I have more direct control over this being than I have of any other. So it's just a very practical thing. I can feel frustrated or happy what's happening in the outside world, but I don't control that. I do control this one. So I think about that. It's like, you know, just the different ways of being, and what each different way, what does it need?
Yeah. Getting back to what you were saying before about people feeling hopeless when they look at the whole world, and what you're saying now as well, the thing to remember is we are part of the world. You know, the phrase, be the change that you want to see. If we take the time to do what is necessary to support our own peace through our practice, through our service with proper attitude, at least this little area of the world is peaceful, and that's so much more powerful than we realize, because the reverberations go out.
I love that you brought this up, because to me it's like the most important thing to talk about. And I had this thought during meditation TT too, because the different techniques are wonderful.
Yeah.
And another technique occurred to me, related to what we're talking about. So first I consider, okay, do I believe this? Do I know this, that I am connected, that I am a part of something larger than myself? That's like first step, is to get clear on that, okay? Because in the past, at least for me, and I think for many people, it's like, I don't really believe that, or maybe that's like a nice spiritual notion that we're all one or connected. So like, is this true or is it not true? So for me, it's true, and there's no doubt about it that I'm linked up.
Okay.
So now going from that premise, that's a game changer. That changes everything, because however I'm feeling inside is going to have an effect on the external environment. So right there, that's giving me purpose beyond anything that I probably ever experienced before coming to that realization, right? So in a way that like kind of whips me into shape of like everything that I'm doing to further my own growth is also helping the world at large. And in meditation, in a way, like calling it like purpose meditation, right? This isn't just, and you touched on this too, I remember during the training, is like, what we're doing is not just something to diminish as not being like important or something I should do to, relax my mind or something like that. No, it's way more important than that. These vibrations, if we're entering into a place of love and oneness and these things and feeling them genuinely in our being, those vibrations are going out to the world to have an effect. So meditation, even, like the thought is like meditation itself can provide this purpose that I think so many people are looking for. If you don't have like, oh, I want to be a doctor or something like that. Well, you can still meditate. Yeah. So on like even the level of the breath, and I'll tell you for years now, I've been focusing on giving. That was the easy one for me to do. Like send it out, okay, you're connected, send it out. But I didn't realize how much more there was for me to receive, and that has been very profound as well, because the more that I take in this energy and it feels like nature wants me to take it in, breathe in all this goodness, all this strength, then my capacity for giving heightens as well. Have you had a similar experience to that?
I don't think about it so much. I'm really, at this stage in my life, I think, I just am, and I show up. And let what needs to happen or flow through me do so, and try to grow with each passing day.
How do you grow?
I think nature itself, the divine plan, sees to that by placing us in certain situations and environments that impel us to reach deeper within to come to good solutions.
So like life itself is teaching
Absolutely.
all the time.
Every moment. Every moment. Gurudev used to say the universe is the great university. And I believe we're put into classrooms that are divinely choreographed to have the lessons we need to learn. And as soon as we learn them, we're moved out. I remember once I was living at our ashram in Northern California. We had a lot of problems with the sewer system, and it was going to take millions of dollars to correct it. So we were all sent out to see if we could get jobs, like real jobs. And of everyone at the ashram, I think I was one of 5 that actually managed to get a job. So I was the office manager for the county newspaper, the Clear Lake Observer. So I would just show up every day, do what I was asked to do, and then go home at night to the ashram. And I served there for about a year. And one day I went to the job, and I looked up, and I looked around me, and it was like, I got it. And I sometimes do this. I talk to God. And I looked up, and I always opened up the office, so there was no one else there. And I said, you know, I get it. I know why I was placed here. I understand the lessons I was supposed to learn, and I want you to know I got it. If you want to keep me here, I'm fine with that, but I know you usually don't like to waste time, so I'm just letting you know I get it. I went home from work that very day, and I was told to quit my job, that they had decided to sell the ashram because there was no way our little, $100 weekly paycheck, 5 of us, was going to pay for this enormous renovation that was needed.
The chipmunk.
Yeah. But the chipmunk helped us to fulfill whatever purpose we had there. We had a purpose in being there.
So do you think the same lessons or similar lessons will continue to present themselves until we get it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
No doubt.
You can't run away from yourself.
And the more that it opens up, like your situation, like I got it,
Yeah.
what I needed to learn, I shifted, something changed, and then there'll be something else.
Oh, there's always something
And then
else.
there's always something else endlessly.
Well, if we're here on earth, we have lessons to learn. When we make mistakes, I always think it's not a failure. It's arrogant to think we won't make mistakes because we've been sent here to learn lessons. Part of learning lessons is making mistakes. So it's part of the process of the evolution of the soul. In the Yoga Sutras, it says Prakriti, nature, has 2 purposes: to provide experiences to the soul and ultimately liberation. The liberation comes after the experiences refine, purify, and elevate the soul. So it can be a recipient, a vessel for that highest experience. So that's nature's purpose.
So I think even about this relationship to mistakes that we have, right? Like, I can make a mistake, and then afterwards I can kind of be mad at myself about making the mistake or disappointed with myself or whatever it is. And then that can happen again and again and again. And that itself maybe is the lesson, right? It's like, it's not even the actual mistake, it's the response to the mistake. That's the lesson, and then that will keep repeating itself. But this one I feel like is so common that you bring up, like mistakes, right? And how much fear there is to make a mistake. Like, it's so natural, right? Like mistakes, like you said, are gonna happen, like a child learning to walk, right? How many mistakes does it make trying to get up or move its legs? It's like, that's the way of things. But we almost treat it like it's not. And I wonder why that is. And I'm wondering if this is where the ego comes into place, and we almost like take ourselves too seriously. Like this identity, this being, like can be like obsessed with its performance and what do other people think about me and how are they analyzing me and all that. Is that one of the major traps?
Yeah. Gurudev used to speak often from the Tirukkural, or 3 main scriptures of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Bhagavad Gita, and Tirukkural. Tirukkural has just little couplets. And one of my favorites is, never regret anything, never do anything that you will regret later. But he knows we're going to. So the second part is, but just in case you do, it's better not to do the regretting. In other words, you learn the lesson and move on. Regretting is like you've fallen into a hole, and then you take a bat and you bang yourself down further in. You take the lesson, but not beating yourself up for having slipped. Gurudev once was speaking to me about the spiritual path. And he said, if you were to plot the spiritual path of anyone's life, he says it's very similar to plotting the path to healing from a serious illness, in a way. The spiritual path, healing, doesn't go straight up. No one gets to the goal like that. It doesn't even go up on a gentle incline. It's on a gentle incline, but you're constantly cycling. Like 4 steps forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 1 step back. And you slowly learn the lessons and proceed to the goal. This is revolution. This is evolution. Revolution comes and goes. Evolution is a trajectory in a definite direction.
Yeah, and that feels totally on point to me. That's how it is. Yeah. Okay, so going back to this transition that you had, so you were in medical school in Barnard?
Yeah.
And
not medical school, pre-med.
Pre-med, okay. And so how were you introduced to Swami Satchidananda to begin with?
Okay, so getting back to that. So my interest began to shift, and I realized it was shortly after he had come to reside in New York City, from the actual science to the philosophy of science, to the nature of the world, understanding that, the nature of the mind, how they interact, the purpose of language in communicating what the world presents. And from those questions, I became interested in a group of philosophers known as the pre-Socratic philosophers, who were very much yogis, people like Heraclitus. He said something to the effect, you can never step in the same river twice, you know. The only constant is change. There was Parmenides, there was Pythagoras, all these great thinkers. So my thinking began to flow in another direction. I decided to go an extra year of school and do an intensive major in philosophy. I wound up graduating with more questions than answers. So I graduated from college, and during the college experience, the stressors living in New York City and being in such a demanding program and a very high caliber school as well began to take a toll on my body. So at one point I went to see a doctor. I had hardly ever seen any doctors in my life. And he handed me some pills, and he told me, come back in a couple of weeks and we're going to do some tests. So this is a fancy New York City doctor. I came out of his office. I'm standing on the street. I take the bottle of pills that he gave me. I poured them into my hand, and I stood there for a while looking at them. I just contemplated them. And then out loud, I said, no, no, no. This is not going to be what my life is about. I threw them in a trash can. Across the street was a bookstore. I crossed the street and got my first yoga book, a book on Hatha Yoga by Indra Devi. That's how it began. And so I graduated college. I was getting into yoga. My mind was exploring these other teachings. And we're talking now the late 60s. Where it was happening was the Bay Area in San Francisco. That was sort of the womb of the New Age movement. So I decided to go there. But I will say, before that even, I went there in the summer, but in the spring, a friend called me and said, there's a Swami who's going to be speaking at the university chapel tonight. And I got this funny feeling when I heard that. And I said, what's the Swami's name? And the person said, Swami Satchidananda. And it was like everything inside of me just stopped. And at this point, I was living out of state, so I couldn't go. But I knew in that instant that life as I had known it would never be the same again.
See, I have to say I'm fascinated by experiences like this that you're sharing, like with the pills, the message that come through, and just hearing Swami Satchidananda's name.
Yeah.
And so it seems to me that you are very linked up. and we can call it intuition, whatever it is, but it fascinates me because my mother has been telling me this my whole life about the importance of following your gut, your instincts, all of that, which I get and I honor, and it's beautiful, For me and probably for many others, it's not so easy. Like, I wish that messages came through so strongly like that, It's it just doesn't happen,
What I think, Avi, I think the universe is continually giving us those messages. Our minds are too busy to receive them. But if we just can stop, and if we have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, the heart to receive, we're receiving all the time exactly what we need. I totally believe that, totally.
But it's, I think it's like maybe like some kind of conditioning that's deep in there that says to me, like, that's crazy. Like, if you do this thing now, like if just because you heard a voice or something, you totally redirect your life and make like this big change because of this, this moment, like that there's like fear there, that path, to go down that path, like, okay, there's this one decision, but now am I just going to start to make decisions like this, and who knows what's going to happen? And if you have a family and commitments, and are those all just going to go like that one day because you got another message?
No, I don't believe in being reckless. I don't think intuition is about recklessness. I'm a very thoughtful person, but you learn from experience to recognize that true voice within you. It has a certain tone. It has a certain feeling. There's no demand in it. It's soft, clear, decisive, and present. And you learn from experience when you follow and when you don't. I remember once I was staffing a retreat in Colorado. So we started in Denver. So I came from San Francisco, so I'm already 1 mile high. And the retreat was about 10,000 or more feet. It was really high up. But most of the people were Denver, citizens, so they're used to living at an elevated level. I just came from San Francisco. So we're at the retreat, and the day before, the staff gathers, and everyone says, let's go take a sauna. Let's all have a nice sauna together. And I'm thinking, me too, sure. And I heard that voice within me as clear as a bell. Don't do it. But I wanted to because it was going to be fun. So anyway, I had an episode. It was, the air was very thin for me. All of a sudden, your heart always beats faster when you're in the sauna anyway. Anyway, all my systems went sort of screwy, and they quickly rushed me down the mountain and they had all sorts of things hooked up and plugged into me and whatnot. And my good fortune was, I'm in the emergency room, waiting to be seen, hooked up to all these things. The doctor comes in, and I learned afterwards he happened to be a Zen practitioner. And he just stood there, staring at me for a few moments, and he said, remove all that stuff. And it's sort of by the power of his focus, knowledge, and intention, in a way, and I guess my receptivity to that, everything came into order. But I will say also, for a year afterwards, I couldn't go up into high elevations without getting vertigo. So there was still that sensitivity for a while, but I heard that voice. And I remembered afterwards. It was a good lesson. So that's how you get to learn what it sounds like. You don't listen to every crazy idea that the mind creates. This comes from a deeper place.
So how often does that voice show up?
I don't count.
But like, and also, have you found, is that relationship with that voice, does it enhance as time goes by? Like, does it show up now more than it used to in the past?
Again, I don't measure in that way, but I would say it's the way I move through life. I'm very intellectual, externally, very analytical, but the way I move through life is more feeling-based. I feel it, I sense it, and that's part of this, I guess you could say, inner knowing of sorts.
Is humility necessary
Absolutely.
for that?
Absolutely. In fact, it's interesting you brought it up. For me, the two outstanding requisites for spiritual life and profound growth are humility and faith. Faith in your goal, faith in your teacher, faith in the teaching, faith in your practice, faith in yourself, faith in the process. The faith can take any number of forms according to the individual. And then the humility to accept that you don't know everything, and not only that, you don't even know what you don't know, you know? And with the trust of a child, in a way, that you will be shown and guided every step of the way as your unique path unfolds. Because everyone's path is unique.
It almost seems to me that the humility is necessary in order to have faith. Right? It's like when I really realize that I don't know, like I really don't know, the faith is like right there for me in that opening.
In that unknowing. Sometimes we have to be pushed to the limit of our understanding to really find our faith in a more profound way. It's like when the heart is overwhelmed, when the mind is confounded, where action needs to be taken, but all you see are smoke and mirrors and confusion. We turn to a higher wisdom, a deeper knowing, for help, for help.
It's a big deal, I think, to be able to do what we're talking about genuinely. Like, I think something inside of me even has to die, I would say. You know, like that part of me that takes my opinion really seriously, like my outlook on the world, and I know what's right and what should happen, all of that, that is, I'm holding on to it very tightly. Like, that has to die. Like, that's a death of something inside of me.
It's not inside of you. It has nothing to do with what's inside of you. It's what's running around in your mind. And it's interesting you bring up the term opinions. I think that's one of the problems in today's society. Everyone has opinions about everything. Like you mentioned, you know how the world is connected more. And opinions begin to masquerade as facts. And as we see, a web of confusion is spun. That's what. So the image that occurred to me years ago is that if you think of the wheel of life, each one of us is positioned at a particular and unique position on that wheel. And based on where we are, which is based on our prior experiences and conditioning, we see things in a certain way. We have opinions about the direction that should be taken. So just picture this simple wheel. And let's say the question is getting to the center. You're here at north, I'm here at east, based on our lives' experiences. You say, Swami Karunananda, we definitely must go south. And I'd say, Avi, I appreciate your viewpoint, but you're missing the point. We should go west. And then if we're like everyone else in the world, we fight. Because we think we're right, and it's so important that we do that. And then what happens in the fullness of time? The wheel turns, because nothing stays stationary. So now, you're east, and I'm south. And you go, the same problem still exists getting to center, and you say, Swami Karunananda, you were absolutely right. We should go west. And I say, thank you, Avi, for saying that, but I no longer think that's the way we should go. We should go north. I think that really describes what happens, because our minds are not pure, clear vessels. They're conditioned by all our prior experiences. And we go on to everything we experience. I like so much Swami Vivekananda's description of perception. He compares it to an oyster making a pearl. The way an oyster makes a pearl is a little bit of grit or a little parasite falls into its shell. And then the oyster immediately throws its own enameling around that to protect itself from the irritation. Perception is like that. The truth, the fact, is like something falling into our mind. All our past experience and conditioning is like the enameling. We glom onto that. And then he goes on to say, all that we do know, all that we can know through the instrument of the mind are the pearls that we ourselves create. Our vrittis, this is another quote from him, are our known universe. And that's why when you think of it even in those terms, the importance, the power, the meaning, the greatness of going beyond the mind becomes ever more apparent, to see things in truth as they are.
Yeah, I love it. Like if you ask me, like, what do I know and how do I know it?
Yeah.
Like the things I really know.
Yeah.
Like if can feel that, like this is the truth. Yeah. I think it's only possible for me to really feel that way about anything when I am in that place beyond the mind. And dwelling in that place, a message comes through and it's not mine, and just comes, and everything in my being says, this is true.
That's the voice.
Yeah.
That's the voice we're talking about.
Yeah.
It has a certain tone, it has a certain clarity. It's not aggressive. It just is.
And it's like offering it as
yes,
a gift.
It's
Here is truth, here's a gift for you.
It's an expression of isness, not business. Or busyness.
But the conditioning itself, I think, has something to do with lack of humility. Like, I need to have this identity, this surety of my opinions, like this, like, okay, like, I know for sure that we should go north right now.
Yeah.
You know, there's no humility in that.
Yeah.
But when I ask, like, well, why is that? Because it's so obvious that I don't really know that we should go north most of the time, unless what happened, what we're talking about, what happened, like that message comes through in a clear mind. But it almost seems like in order to fit in, we have to play this game of like really holding on to opinions and facts and like pretending like we know it. And maybe it has to do with like covering up a fear that the unknown is scary, like that this world is so big and I don't know how I got here and I'm not sure where I'm going or what I'm supposed to do. So in order to avoid that, I'm going to pretend like I really know.
I think knowledge of basic Raja Yoga is so much more helpful for navigating today's world than people realize, especially the basic types of thoughts. I'm thinking of two in particular now. One is misconception, the other verbal delusion. I've read that misconception is considered the most frequent activity in the human mind. In right knowledge, the first type of thought form, simply put, there's something out there, and the vritti that forms in your mind corresponds to it. So you're looking at something, you think it's a rope, and it is a rope. Misconception, you're looking at it, but you think it's a snake, and it's really a rope, based on your prior past experience. That's all pervasive. When you see it operative in your own life, you get a way to understand it in a bigger context, the context of the world and the situations we find ourselves in. Also, verbal delusion. I think that's the thought form for the modern era. It has to do with words not corresponding to reality. That sounds bad, but it's also good. It's bad in a way when there's lying, gossip, rumors, fake news, whatever. When we fall into one of those patterns, when we see the effect on us, we see the effect that we cause on others when we get into those powers, then magnify that, multiply it, you see its effect in the world. Okay, but good uses of this thought form, when words don't correspond to reality, it speaks of the creative power of the divine within us. Every new creation, every invention, every plan begins with someone thinking and speaking about something that doesn't exist. It's a portal. When we understand how it functions within ourselves, we can understand how it functions in the world and how to use the power of the mind, the power of intention to create peace, harmony, healing, instead of discord, corruption, greed, plundering, whatever. It all begins here, the power of the mind to create. So we learn about it. We see its effects, good and bad, within ourselves. With that as our basis, yoga is all about using our own equipment as a laboratory, an experimental lab, to learn about the cosmic laws. We're a microcosm, the universe is the macrocosm. The same laws are operative on both levels. We learn how it functions within us. We can see how it functions in the world, and we can be a more potent and useful force for good.
Yeah. I think this very much relates to what you talked about and what you shared when you were a child and you were going for a walk and asking the question, what do I want? Yes. What do I want to do out of life? Because that to me is that I need to be clear on that before I can do what you're talking about. Otherwise, the mind is going to go, it's just all scattered. But once I'm clear on where my allegiance is,
yes,
now I can look at it and say, was what was just happening in the mind useful for where you want to go? Yeah. If not, then work with that, discard it, look into it, whatever I need to do in order to release it, and then use the mind in a different way towards the goal. But if the goal is not clear.
Right, exactly. What you're talking about, the power of faith plus intention.
Yeah.
That's what. I think, you know, there's the saying from Tennyson, more things are wrought by prayer than this world dreams of. And prayer also, prayer is intention wrapped in faith. You know, it's sending out a strong intention, whether it's asking for something, thanking, praising. It's a strong, heartfelt intention. The world moves on that. I'll share something with you, okay? This may sound woo-woo, but I don't care. If we haven't sounded woo-woo enough already, I don't know if this is going to be fit for airing when we're through. But I used to be a big Chicago Bulls fan. People even provided tickets for me to go to their games when they were playing the Wizards in D.C. Those guys, they transcended physical laws, because I watched, you know, videotapes, some of their moves. They had balls suspended in air while someone came and swooped it up. I just saw them do miraculous things. And when I watch games now, like, what was the recent thing? The NFL, the recent things. If you watch the guys on the field, I don't know anything about football, but I shouldn't be saying this probably, and I hope it doesn't sound like I'm bragging, because that's not the point. But I can go before the TV, watch it for 5 minutes, and tell which team's going to win, because their intention is stronger. Their will is stronger. The other team may be favored. They may be bigger. But the team, that you can see it in the players' faces and in their body language, and the people who don't give up. Even if they're behind, they don't give up. Another verse from the Tirukkural. Most people give up on the verge of success. And the Tao Te Ching puts it this way: most people give up on the verge of success. Therefore, give as much care to the end as to the beginning, and then there will be no failure. And you can see it. You know, when you look to see it, you can see the will and the intention, and that generally carries the day. It draws the backing of the cosmic energy. It draws that backing. Look at us with the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. It was like David and Goliath. But our intention was so one-pointed and firm. Absolutely, this will not happen here. And I don't know if you know this, but we got the message that they gave up the project. 1 year, Guru Purnima weekend. As soon as all of our festivities were completed on Sunday, a notice, a phone tree went out throughout the entire community. The project is dead. No one believed that people such as us would stop a big behemoth that was behind the, and it was the power of intention, the power of prayer. This is what I believe, the power of faith. And people here mobilize that.
What if I can shift? I'm curious, like, do you have an intention for integral yoga, for the future? What Swami Satchidananda kind of birthed here and now we're carrying forward. Can you share any intention you have for the future?
I don't have an intention at this time, but I do have faith. I have the faith that he planted good seeds, and they will bear fruit for generations to come. And those of us who are here now are entrusted to be good guardians. We're just passing through, but I have faith this will continue for generations yet to come. That the teachings, the practices that integral yoga comprises are so much needed in the world. They're so comprehensive, inclusive, accessible, and we have the complete package in a way, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and there's a need for it. And I think if we continue on course, on track, doing our best like the little chipmunk, God will provide what is needed. That's my underlying belief.
How would you like to be remembered?
It doesn't occur to me to want to be remembered. What occurs to me is, how can I be useful in this moment? Again, we're all just passing through. So very important and so inconsequential at the same time. We're part of a bigger plan. It's not about us. It's not about us. And we all are blessed if we're given the opportunity to help others along the way.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share, say?
No. This has been fun.
Yeah, thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this content and think others might as well, please feel free to share and subscribe.